Throwaway account because I genuinely don't want this tied to my main. Some of the people involved still lurk here, and while I've made peace with how everything turned out, I don't feel like detonating any more family group chats. I met my ex, let's call her Ashley, in the most unremarkable way possible. Mutual friends, a small house party, cheap beer, bad music. She laughed at one of my sarcastic comments and decided I was funny instead of annoying, which honestly felt like a win. We clicked fast, not in a chaotic, toxic way, just easy. Coffee dates turned into nights cooking together. She liked how grounded I was. I liked that she made plans and actually followed through. We talked about moving in together, about future trips, about dumb little things like what kind of dog we get someday. And her mom, Karen, loved me. I don't mean polite smiles and forced compliments. I mean she clocked me immediately as the good one. The first time I met her, she hugged me like she already knew me and asked if I was eating enough. She'd pull Ashley aside and say things like, "Don't screw this up," not quietly. Karen had this calm confidence about her. Early 50s, divorce, took care of herself without trying to look 20 again. She had a laugh that filled a room and this way of holding eye contact that made you feel like you were the only person there. At the time, I registered all of this in a completely harmless way. My girlfriend's mom is cool, that's it. Our relationship stayed solid for almost 2 years. No screaming fights, no cheating, no obvious red flags. Until Megan. Megan was Ashley's best friend, and in hindsight, the most insecure person I've ever met. She had opinions about everything, especially my relationship, and none of them were flattering. At first, it was subtle. "You don't think he's too safe? Are you sure you're not settling?" Guys like that get boring. I didn't even know these conversations were happening until Ashley started pulling away. Less affection, more "I just need space." Suddenly, everything I did felt wrong, too attentive, too distant, too predictable. I tried talking to her, tried adjusting, tried asking what she needed. What she needed, apparently, was Megan in her ear, telling her that stability meant stagnation. The breakup was clean but cold. "I just feel like I need something different," Ashley said, already emotionally checked out. Karen called me 2 days later. "I don't agree with what she did," she said bluntly, "and I want you to know that." That call stayed with me. Weeks passed, then months. I ran into Karen one afternoon at a local cafe, totally by chance. She smiled when she saw me, really smiled, and sat down without asking. We talked longer than either of us intended to. About work, about life, about how confusing relationships can be when too many voices get involved. At one point she said, "I always thought you were a good man." There was nothing inappropriate about it, just honest, warm. But something about the way she said it lingered. When we stood to leave, she hesitated for half a second, then hugged me. Not quick, not awkward, comfortable. I told myself it was nothing. I was wrong. I didn't know it yet, but that coffee wasn't closure. It was the beginning of a very different kind of family story. After the cafe run-in, Karen and I didn't suddenly start sneaking around or doing anything dramatic. Life just overlapped. We'd text occasionally, nothing flirty, mostly mundane stuff, work frustrations, recipe swaps, jokes about how terrible the dating pool was. She had a dry sense of humor I hadn't fully appreciated before. The kind that caught you off guard and made you laugh a second too late. What struck me was how easy it was to talk to her. No posturing, no tests, no rewrites of conversations later. She listened, really listened, and responded like an adult who'd already survived the hard parts of life and didn't feel the need to create new ones. One night she invited me over for dinner. Just dinner, she said. You look like you've been eating like a depressed raccoon. I laughed and accepted. Her house felt different without Ashley there. Quieter. Warmer somehow. Candles lit. Music low. Wine poured but not pushed. At one point she caught me looking at her and raised an eyebrow. What? Nothing, I said. I just get why people gravitate towards you. She smiled, a little embarrassed. Careful. Compliments from you might go to my head. The moment passed, but not really. From then on, there was this awareness, not desire exactly, more like gravity, a sense that we were standing closer than necessary, that silences lasted longer than they used to. The tension peaked the night Ashley showed up unexpectedly. She hadn't told Karen she was coming. Walked in mid-conversation, mid-laugh. Her eyes flicked between us, narrowing. This is weird, she said flatly. Karen didn't miss a beat. We're adults. We can have dinner. Ashley turned to me. Why are you here? I shrugged. I was invited. That shut her up for a second. Later, she pulled her mom aside, whispering harshly in the kitchen. I didn't hear every word, but I caught Megan was right, and this is inappropriate. Karen's response was calm but firm. You don't get to dictate my friendships. Ashley stormed out. After the door slammed, the house felt charged. Karen exhaled slowly, rubbing her temple. I'm sorry you had to see that, she said. Not your fault, I replied. She looked at me then, really looked, and said quietly, you didn't deserve how she treated you. That sentence landed heavy. The first line we crossed wasn't physical, it was emotional. We started seeing each other more often. Walks, dinners, long conversations that drifted into things neither of us talked about with anyone else. There were moments where the air felt thick, where I was acutely aware of her perfume, of how close she was sitting. One night as I stood to leave, she touched my arm, just briefly, and said, you make me feel seen. I didn't kiss her. I wanted to. God, I wanted to. But I didn't. Instead, I said goodnight and drove home with my heart pounding, like I'd done something reckless anyway. The funny moment came a week later when my friend Mark found out. You're telling me, he said, staring at me like I'd confessed to a crime, that you're emotionally entangled with your ex's mom? I didn't say entangled. You just described entangled with wine. He paused, then, honestly, legendary. Things finally tipped the night Karen invited me over after a bad day. We talked. We laughed. The wine flowed a little more freely than usual. At some point, she reached for my hand. Neither of us pulled away. This is probably a terrible idea, she said softly. I met her eyes. Doesn't feel terrible. The kiss was slow, careful, charged with months of restraint. When it ended, she laughed quietly and said, well, that's going to complicate family dinners. I smiled. Worth it? She didn't answer with words. She kissed me again, and somewhere, very far away, Ashley was about to realize that her friend's sabotage hadn't just cost her a relationship, it had changed her family forever. Once the line was crossed, there was no dramatic fallout, just a quiet, deliberate decision to stop pretending this was a mistake. Karen and I took it slow. Slower than most people would expect, given how ridiculous the situation sounded on paper. We didn't sneak around. We didn't hide. We also didn't announce anything. We were two adults choosing each other carefully, fully aware of the blast radius. The first time Ashley found out was explosive. She showed up at Karen's house unannounced again, apparently a habit, saw my car in the driveway, and immediately knew. You've got to be kidding me, she snapped the moment she walked in. Karen didn't raise her voice. She never did when she was serious. No, I don't. Ashley looked at me like I'd betrayed some sacred law of nature. This is revenge, isn't it? I surprised myself by answering calmly. No, this is what happens when you let someone else run your relationship. She laughed bitterly. You're doing this to hurt me. Karen stepped in then, sharp and protective in a way that made my chest tighten. He didn't chase me, she said. I chose him. That ended the argument, not because Ashley accepted it, but because she had nothing left to say. The fallout was messy for a while. Awkward holidays, passive-aggressive texts. Megan, of course, lost her mind and tried to spin the story like I was some manipulative villain. Karen shut that down immediately and permanently. You don't get to rewrite my life, she told her once, and you're not welcome in it. That was that. Over time, things settled. Karen and I became solid in a way that felt peaceful. Sunday mornings, shared routines, comfortable intimacy that didn't need fireworks to feel electric. She had this habit of resting her hand on my chest when we lay together, like she was reminding herself I was real. The subtly suggestive part of all this, the part people always ask about, was never flashy. It was the confidence. The way she'd catch my eye across a room and smile like she knew exactly what she was doing later. The way she'd whisper something teasing in my ear at the worst possible moment and then walk away like nothing happened. The funny moment came when my friend Mark finally met her properly. He shook her hand, paused, then said, I just want to be clear. This makes you my friend's girlfriend and his ex's mom. Karen smiled sweetly. Correct. Mark turned to me. I don't know whether to bow or ask for advice. A year later, Karen sat me down at the same kitchen table where everything had quietly started. I don't want to tiptoe anymore, she said. I want a future. I didn't hesitate. We got married in a small ceremony. Nothing extravagant, just people who mattered. Karen looked radiant, not younger, not trying to be anything she wasn't, just happy. Ashley didn't attend, but a few months later she sent me a message. I still don't like how this happened, she wrote, but I can see that you're good to her. I stared at that text for a long time before replying. I always was. Now, family dinners are interesting. Ashley is polite, distant, but respectful. Karen is glowing. And me? I sit at the table, glass in hand, listening to laughter, feeling more settled than I ever did in my 20s. Life didn't reward me for being petty. It rewarded me for being patient. And yeah, being your ex's stepdad is a wild plot twist. But I've never been happier.